The story begins with a man named Desai as he walks with his partner beside a river. They plan to end their lives by jumping in, wanting to stay together forever, but before they can jump in, they're suddenly hit by Recap-kun. Desai wakes up in a church, thinking he's in the afterlife, but a girl named Annette tells him he's still alive. He wonders who she is, so she explains that she's there to guide him, telling him he's in another world, where he has been selected as a hero to save everyone. Desai realizes their attempt to die failed, and as she's about to explain his mission, she's shocked when she sees a bottle of sedatives, realizing he's trying to take his own life. She heals him, but he tells her to stop bothering him, saying he just wants a place to die. He starts eating the pills again, and she doesn't understand why he wants to die, telling him he has been chosen to save the world, but he mentions that he never asked to be chosen. She reveals that Recap-kun is an otherworldly selection truck, and it was the one who brought him there. She explains that there are countless people who aren't happy with their lives, and only those who get hit by Recap-kun get an opportunity to redo their lives. She knows he wasn't happy with his life, because the truck came for him, but she explains that he now has the chance to abandon his previous life and start a new one. But he grabs her staff, telling her the truck ruined the happiest moment of his life, and he doesn't think she should be the one to judge whether a person is happy or not. He starts to smoke, and she can't believe what she's hearing, because he was saved from a miserable life where he was about to take his own life, but he doesn't seem happy about it. She thinks he will change his mind when he sees his stats, because every human brought to the world is given superhuman powers, but she's shocked when she realizes he's extremely weak. She's also surprised that his stats screen is red, and she wonders why he's still poisoned, even though she already healed him. She thinks there must be a reason for it, because she can't believe how weak he is, so she checks if he has any special skills, but she can't find anything. He's about to leave, but she stops him, telling him he must have been brought there by mistake, because he doesn't have the ability to survive in this world. He starts to smile, telling her it's the story of his life, and he mentions that he will always be a failure no matter where he goes. She tells him to stay for a while, because in his current state, he's going to get killed by monsters, but he doesn't care, because he's just looking for a place to die. She thinks about how at first, she was excited to guide the people who came from other worlds, but after seeing how selfish everyone was, she lost all her excitement, and she realizes that Desai is different. She wants him to choose a profession before he leaves, but he explains that he has been a writer since he was born. As he leaves, she falls to her knees, and her face turns red, because she thinks he's the man she's been waiting for. Desai comes across a sign, but he can't understand what's written on it, and he thinks there's no chance he's going to find a cafe. He keeps hearing the system's voice, which tells him about the progress he has made, but it makes him feel like he's going to die. He notices a girl named Tama, who is trapped by a monster tree, but instead of helping her, he thinks about how beautiful dying girls are, and he asks her if he can write a novel about her. She tells him to save her, so he tries to jump to her, but he can't reach her, and he ends up getting caught by the tree. She explains that it has a suction skill, which sucks the life force out of its captives, so they're going to die in a few minutes, but he thinks it's great news, asking her if she's excited to die. But the tree suddenly starts rotting away, and they're set free, but he's disappointed because he failed to die again. The system mentions that the tree was killed by his poison, so she realizes that it absorbed poison from him instead of his life force. He tells her he's trying to die, and he's disappointed that he survived once again. But she's happy that she's alive, and she invites him to her place because she wants to thank him for saving her life. He thinks about his partner Saki, who tried to die with him in his previous life, and he wonders if she was also transported to this world. Tama tries to introduce herself, but he keeps mentioning Saki, and he's happy to have a reason to live, planning to find her so that they can die together. Meanwhile, Annette prays for Desai's safety, hoping they'll meet again, and he suddenly returns, so she runs to him, but she's shocked to see Tama with him. He asks her if she knows Saki, so she freaks out, realizing he has another woman in his life. Annette decides to join the party, and as Tama tries to grab Desai's hand, Annette smacks it away. Tama wonders why she joined them, and seeing the look on her face, Tama realizes she's in love with him. So she starts blushing, but she explains that she just wants to protect him, because he's the weakest otherworlder. Tama is surprised he's from another world, thinking it's the reason why he's strong, but Annette thinks she's lying, knowing he's weak. They start to argue with each other, and when Tama mentions that he saved her life, Annette gets jealous, thinking they're already close. He finds a coffin and decides to rest in it, telling them to wake him up once they reach the town, and he closes it, but Tama gets mad after he calls her the wrong name. They start to drag his coffin, and Tama gets angry, so she yells at him to walk on his own. But he doesn't reply, so she thinks he might be dead, but Annette assures her he's just resting. They reach the city, and Annette thinks they should meet with the king first. So they go to the castle, where they meet the King Thomas and his daughter Charlotte. He offers to let them stay there, on the condition that they share the stories from their travels. He wonders if Desire has pleasant memories to share, but when he starts talking about how it feels to sleep in a coffin, the king thinks he's threatening him. Annette tries to distract him, telling him how beautiful Charlotte is, and Thomas reveals that she's getting married soon. He summons two men named Gomez and Otto, and he mentions that due to the influence of the Dark Lord, the monsters have become more active, and he's too old to deal with it. So one of the two men is going to marry Charlotte and become the next king, but he mentions that she still hasn't chosen one of them. So he asks Desire and the others who they think is more suitable to be her husband, but Desire thinks he shouldn't ask them to make such an important decision. He mentions that Thomas isn't fit to be king, and he leaves, but Annette and Tama apologize for his behavior, saying he's from another world. At night, Annette wakes up, realizing Desire is having trouble sleeping, but he reveals that he never sleeps peacefully. She wonders who Saki is, but before he can answer, she sees Thomas sleeping in the same bed as him, and they start to argue with each other. He leaves the room, and he comes across Charlotte, who is watching a lake, and he tells her it's so beautiful it makes him want to drown in it. She can't believe he's so depressed that he wants to die, but he thinks she feels more troubled than him. She explains that she doesn't know who to choose as her husband, saying Gomez is one of their most dependable soldiers, and her father believes in his strength. But Otto is her childhood friend, who always cheered her up when she felt down. Desire realizes she's the complete opposite of him because she cares for her father, while he only caused problems for his family, but he never asked anyone how he should live his life. The next day, Thomas summons Desire and the others to act as witnesses, as Charlotte chooses her husband, but everyone's shocked when she says she wants to die with Desire. She mentions that after she talked to him, she realized that Otto was always singing to her because he just wanted someone to listen to his songs, thinking he never really cared for her. She explains that she can't marry Gomez because he's smelly, but Thomas urges her to come to her senses and choose one of them. But she calls him a fool, telling him she didn't even want to get married, and no one cared about her feelings except for Desire. Gomez suddenly transforms into a monster, revealing that his mission was to become king and offer the kingdom to the Dark Lord. He thinks Charlotte saw through his disguise, but she explains that she only said he smelled because it's the truth. He plans to kill everyone, and the soldiers charge in, but he blows them away. We see that Annette has passed out after hearing what Charlotte said about Desire, and Tama tries to wake her up, but has no luck. She realizes they're in danger, so she jumps away with Annette and attacks Gomez. Otto sings a song, which makes her think he's buffing her, but nothing happens, and she realizes he just wanted to perform his new song. Gomez rushes towards her, and she tries to stop him, but he manages to land a hit. He prepares to finish her off, but Desire interrupts them, saying he wants Gomez to kill him and Charlotte first. Gomez decides to grant his wish, and he rushes towards them, but Charlotte cries because she doesn't want to die, saying she wants to protect the kingdom, so Desire pushes her out of the way. Gomez is about to crush him, but Annette summons a barrier to protect him, and Gomez tries to break through it, but his horns end up breaking, and Tama hits him with everything she has, sending him flying out of the castle, and he falls into the lake. After that, Thomas apologizes to Charlotte for never considering her feelings, and she becomes the queen of the kingdom. Desire and the others continue their journey, as Annette and Tama wonder if Charlotte is going to be okay. But Desire thinks there's nothing to be worried about because she made the decision herself. He thinks about how dying women are beautiful, but he also admires women who stand on their own feet. Tama gets hungry, so Annette suggests taking a break, and Desire comes out of his coffin, wondering if it's time to eat. Annette offers him bread, but he wants boiled tofu, so she decides to look for it in the next town. Tama wonders how long it will take to reach her home, and Annette thinks they should arrive in a couple of days, but they first need to make a stop at the Zuiten Temple. She explains that people from other worlds arrive at one of the 4 temples, and from there, they go to fight the Dark Lord, but Dazai's goal isn't to fight, but to find Saki. Annette is relieved he isn't going to fight the Dark Lord, because she doesn't want him to put his life in danger, so Tama teases her, thinking she must really love him, so she becomes embarrassed, and she explains that she just wants to help him, because he showed her the light when she had given up hope for her job. But Tama wonders what will happen if Saki turns out to be his lover, and she starts crying, saying she wants to verify it. Tama isn't sure if the temples will let her in, because she left her job to go with him, but she reveals that the head priest of the temple is her friend, and she had her familiar deliver her resignation. Tama realizes that her familiar is a small monster, and it's eating Dazai's head, so she scolds it for always causing trouble. She's surprised when it spits out her resignation letter, and she gets angry, realizing it didn't deliver the letter, but Dazai calms them down, and names the monster Melos. He goes back into his coffin, and they're shocked when a dragon suddenly appears in front of them. A girl named Waldelia arrives, and they can't believe their eyes when she tames the dragon, but she tells them to go away, because there are more monsters in the area. She looks at the coffin, thinking their group has already suffered a casualty, but Dazai comes out of it, and Annette mentions that he's a weirdo from another world. But Waldelia gets angry, saying she will kill all the otherworlders, and she attacks them with her dark magic. Annette tries to block it with her barrier, but the attack is too strong, and it breaks through her shield. She sees the mark around Waldelia's neck, realizing she's the Dark Lord, and she's so strong that they can't even move in front of her. She's about to attack again, but Dazai tells her to leave the others alone, saying he's ready to die. So she stabs him, and she thinks he's dead, so she starts walking away. But he gets up, saying he feels the hatred inside her, and he explains that he can understand how she feels. He wonders why she feels that way, but she gets scared, and flies away with her dragon. Dazai and the others barely survive, and Melos drags them to the temple, where Annette tells the priestess Isha to take care of Dazai first. The next day, Dazai makes a complete recovery, but Tama is shocked when he starts to drink poison, because he feels like he recovered too much. Isha tells Annette she was shocked when she heard Annette had quit her job, but she was also relieved, because she felt Annette was too pure for the job. Isha wonders why she's traveling with an otherworlder, reminding her that they're terrible people because they're given powers to fight the Dark Lord, but they all end up using it for themselves. An otherworlder named Kitaro appears, explaining that he has the power to make an unlimited amount of money, but Isha sends him running. She mentions that all of them are like Kitaro, but Annette thinks Dazai is different, so Isha tries to convince her to stop traveling with him. He suddenly interrupts them, telling her he needs money to buy a drug, so she gives him gold. But Isha thinks he has already ruined her. Isha asks her about his powers, so she explains that he doesn't have any, but he still fought against the Dark Lord to protect them. But Isha is shocked, because the Dark Lord was already defeated 7 days ago. Annette tells Tama about the situation, and she's glad the Dark Lord is dead, but she wonders who Waldelia is. She mentions that Dazai also came to the world 7 days ago, and she's confused about it, because otherworlders are summoned to defeat the Dark Lord. But if he was already defeated, there would be no reason to summon Dazai. Dazai becomes depressed because he can't write about his experiences since starting his new life. Annette wonders what he wrote about from their first meeting, but he reveals that he didn't write anything about her, so she starts crying. He wants to feel the excitement he felt from Waldelia, so Annette decides to go shopping with him. She buys a huge armor for him because they could be attacked at any time, and she tells him to stay put, saying she's going to buy the items they need. Isha comes across him, and she tells him to stop traveling with Annette, thinking she will be unhappy with him, but he thinks it's her choice whether she wants to come with him or not. An otherworlder named Suzuki tells the entire town that the Dark Lord has been defeated. But since the otherworlders risk their lives to defeat him, he announces that they're going to rule over the people. No one is on board with the idea, and Kitaro tells Suzuki about how Annette treated him, so he becomes angry. Suzuki pets Annette's head, and she falls to her knees, as Tama wonders what just happened. So Kitaro reveals that anyone Suzuki pets turns into his slave, and Tama yells at him to turn Annette back to normal, but he also makes her his slave. Isha tells him the town isn't going to let him rule over them, so he orders his wolves to kill them, planning to build a new kingdom once everything has been destroyed. The wolves set fire to the town, and Tama starts attacking Dazai, but he's protected by the armor Annette bought for him. She finally manages to break through it, but a broken piece hits her, and she gets knocked out, so Dazai puts her in a barrel to make sure she stays safe. Isha comes flying towards him, and she tells him otherworlders are selfish. She reveals that Suzuki was a weak man when he arrived in the world, but he has become greedy due to his powers. Dazai wonders where he is, and she mentions that he's in the church, so he decides to go there. But she doesn't think he can face Suzuki on his own, so she follows after him. They reach the church, and Dazai pulls out a bottle of poison, which makes her relieved, thinking he has a plan, but she's shocked when he drinks it. She thinks they should attack from behind and catch Suzuki by surprise, but Dazai walks in through the front door. He tells Suzuki he wants to make a novel based on him, which makes him think Dazai wants to write about how he's going to conquer the world. But Dazai explains that he wants to write about how Suzuki gained more power than he deserved and fell into greed. Suzuki orders his wolves to attack Dazai, but he keeps writing in his book without paying any attention to them, so Isha tries to save him. She uses her magic to blast the wolves, but she gets overwhelmed, and they shoot fireballs at him, but Mellows uses his helmet to protect him, deflecting the attacks back towards Suzuki. He orders his biggest wolf to attack, and as it bites Dazai, he thinks the fight is over. But it suddenly gets infected with poison and dies immediately as Kotaro freaks out and decides to run away. Isha tells him to surrender, but he orders Annette to fight them. So she takes his knife and attacks Isha, but she doesn't want to fight Annette, so she tells Dazai they should retreat. But he tells Suzuki that Annette isn't as weak as he thinks, and he calls Dazai a fool, thinking there's no way to overcome his spell, so she's going to live the rest of her life as his slave. But Dazai gets close to her, and Suzuki realizes she's stopping herself from killing him, so he tries to get her to go through with it. She remembers how she was trapped in life, but Dazai set her free, so she stabs her leg, and she manages to break Suzuki's spell. Dazai tells Isha to heal her, and Suzuki can't believe he lost, so he tries to take his own life, but Dazai stops him, saying he can't allow him to die, because his novel isn't finished yet. We learn that Suzuki was bullied in his previous life, so he considered taking his own life, but he didn't have the courage to go through with it. But he gets hit by Recap-kun, and he met Isha, who told him he had been selected as a hero to fight the Dark Lord. He was surprised by the power he received, but when people started treating him like a loser, he used his skills to teach them a lesson. He tells Dazai they couldn't expect a person like him, who had only faced suffering, to save an unknown world after getting such powers. Dazai thanks him for his story because it allowed him to complete his novel, but he still doesn't consider it a masterpiece. A summoning circle suddenly appears beneath Suzuki, and a pillar of light appears. As the dust settles, Isha realizes that Dazai has sent him back to his original world, and Annette tells her Dazai has gained a skill, which makes her wonder if his purpose is to fight the otherworlders. After that, Isha brings a new coffin for Dazai, and Annette thanks her for all the help. Isha tells her Dazai has an important role in their world, and his journey is going to be difficult, but she must support him in every way. Isha wonders if Suzuki is going to continue living his old miserable life, but Dazai mentions that it's up to him on how he wants to write his story. Isha goes to the town of Papal, where she sees a priest named Wolf drinking. He tells her she's lucky only demis live in her area, because he deals with dwarves every day, and he hates how they smell, but another priest named Elton tells Wolf he shouldn't say such things. So he apologizes for his behavior, revealing that Elton is the first non-elf to be appointed as priest, and he even reached the rank of archbishop. He thinks a person's species doesn't matter, saying he has seen elves who don't act like they should. But this makes Wolf angry, telling Elton to change jurisdictions with him, since his area is always peaceful. The Cardinal Miller arrives, and he tells everyone to take a seat. He apologizes for summoning them when they're all busy, and he wants them to give a report of their region. But before they can start, a girl named Aria arrives late for the meeting, and she apologizes to everyone, as Miller mentions that it's her first meeting, since she's the replacement for Annette. She says she has nothing to report, but he reminds her that Charlotte has just taken over the throne, and she apologizes for forgetting it. Elton greets her and reports that everything's fine in his region thanks to the authority of the Pope. Wolf notes that he's managing, and Miller mentions that he heard there were conflicts between the dwarves, but Wolf explains it happens all the time. Isha tells everyone about how Suzuki went on a rampage, and Miller mentions that he summoned everyone to talk about the otherworlders. He explains that the Dark Lord has been defeated, so the Pope has decided to seal the magic circles, which connect their world to the others. Wolf is relieved they won't need to take care of Otherworlders anymore, but Miller reveals that the 7 Otherworlders who defeated the Dark Lord have taken control of his land, and everyone's surprised to hear this. The Pope has received a declaration of war from them, causing him to be distressed, because he thought the Otherworlders were angels sent to save them. So he gave them unconditional love, but they have turned against him. Miller explains that they need to take care of the Otherworlders who are causing chaos in the cities, and they can't overlook Waldelia, who is the daughter of the Dark Lord. Elton can't believe the Otherworlders have become their enemies, and Wolf thinks if they work together, they might become a greater problem than the Dark Lord. Arya knows they're overpowered, but Isha tells everyone about Desai's power to send the Otherworlders back to their original world. The Pope arrives, and he wants her to tell him about Desai, thinking he's their only ray of hope. Meanwhile, Annette and the others head to a town, and decide to rest there before they continue their journey, so Tama is happy that they will be able to sleep in beds. The system announces that she has leveled up due to intense training, but she's disappointed that she's getting stronger by dragging a coffin. A boy named Nir tells them where they can find an inn, and offers to provide information that will help them in their adventures. He mentions a service group, which appoints Otherworlders to a week party so that they can be protected on their travels. Tama has a disgusted look on her face because she's had a terrible experience with the Otherworlders, but Nir thinks they're the ones who are going to save the world. He offers to introduce them to a hero in exchange for money, and she refuses his offer, but Annette immediately pays him. So Tama is shocked, asking her if she knows how much money she's paying, but she thinks it's a small price for Desai's safety. Nir thinks they're carrying a dead person with them, but he's shocked when Desai comes out of the coffin. They tell Nir that despite his appearance, Desai is also a hero, but he refuses to believe them. He takes their money, saying he will be back with a warrior, telling them to wait at the inn. At night, Annette waits for Nir to come back, but Desai tells her he isn't going to return. The receptionist at the inn wonders if they gave him money, and Annette mentions that he promised to get them a hero. But the woman reveals that he hasn't met an adventurer in his life, so Annette starts to lose her mind, realizing she was scammed, but Desai wants to know about him. So the woman reveals that he's an orphan who started living in the city, and he survives by fooling visitors into giving him money. She feels bad for him, thinking the heroes he talks about don't exist, because they wouldn't let him live such a miserable life. Meanwhile, Nir is kidnapped by 3 men, who steal all the money he has, and he tells them his Otherworlder friends aren't going to let them do anything to him. But they start using their powers, and they reveal that they're also Otherworlders. They know he has been using their name to steal money from people, so they decide to punish him, but as one of them is about to shoot him, Desai comes to his rescue. One of them analyzes Desai, realizing he's also an Otherworlder, but he thinks there's nothing to be worried about because Desai is ridiculously weak. They tell him they're going to kill him, but he becomes excited, and he wants them to shoot at his heart, but they realize his health is increasing, so they get scared and run away. He sees the look in Nir's eyes, and he's happy that Nir has the look of a child, because the first time he met him, he seemed like an adult, but he's shocked when Desai leaves without untying him. The next day, they prepare to continue their journey, and they realize Desai is sleepy, so Annette wonders if he was with another woman, but he just gets in his coffin without answering. Nir arrives, and Tama tells him to give them their money, but he mentions that he promised to get them a warrior, so he decides to join them. They continue their journey, and Nir is worried because Desai keeps talking about dying, but he's surprised that the others don't care about it. They reach Tama's homeland, where they see a checkpoint at the front gate, and she tells them she will get them in. But upon seeing her, the guards immediately arrest them, and they end up in jail. Nir realizes they were arrested because of Tama, thinking she must be a criminal, but Desai is excited, because he thinks they're about to get executed. Nir manages to pick the lock, but Desai becomes upset, asking him why he would do that, and the guards see them, and they are instantly caught. They meet the King Siberian, as his minister Briard explains that they're about to get executed for their crimes. Annette doesn't understand what's happening, so Siberian explains that they kidnapped the princess, but Tama arrives, telling him it isn't true, because she decided to travel with them. So they realize she's the princess, and she tells her father to release them, but he explains that he won't do it unless she stops acting like a fool. So she promises to be a good daughter, saying she's going to stop traveling with Desai's party, and Briard tells them they're free to go. We see Annette and Nir enjoying their meals in a restaurant, but they realize that Desire is depressed because he didn't get executed. They can't believe Tama is a princess, and they start talking about her, but a girl named Fawn hears them, so she tells them she used to work as her servant. Desire realizes she knows about her background, so he asks Fawn to tell them about it, thinking Tama is an interesting person. Meanwhile, we see Tama thinking about her friends, but she sees a man standing outside, and he uses his powers to attack the palace. Siberian sees him, asking him who he is, so he introduces himself as Kaibara, and he reveals that he's one of the heroes who defeated the Dark Lord. Siberian asks him what he's doing there, so he reveals that he wants to eat everyone, and Siberian's soldiers charge in, but he uses his powers to eat them. He spits them out, realizing they taste terrible, but he mentions that he wants to taste a young demi-woman. Siberian orders his soldiers to stand back, and he prepares to fight Kaibara, who tries to eat him, but he counters and attacks with his lightning palms. But it doesn't work, and Kaibara pushes him back, as he reveals that his body is extremely durable, because he ate golems the other day. Siberian prepares to use his ultimate technique, telling Kaibara he will defeat him in a single blow, and they're about to clash, but Tama suddenly interrupts them. Kaibara is excited to eat her, and she decides to join the fight, but Siberian stops her, telling her she can never replace her brother. We return to Fawn, as she reveals that Tama had a twin brother named Leon, and he was supposed to inherit the throne, but he died with his mother because of an accident that occurred 10 years ago. So Siberian became depressed, and Tama saw him crying, so she decided to cut her hair, planning to take Leon's place to put his mind at ease. But her plan didn't work, and it only made their relationship worse. Siberian tells Tama she's a terrible fighter, but she lunges at Kaibara, and he's about to eat her, so Siberian pushes her to safety, but he ends up losing his arm. Kaibara tells him he can't use his ultimate technique without his arm, and he taunts Tama, so she becomes furious, and she charges in, but Briard knocks her out and takes her away. We see Desire thanking Fawn for her story, as Briard arrives with Tama, saying they had to escape from the palace because an otherworlder attacked them. Everyone sees an explosion, and they realize that Siberian has been defeated. Kaibara tells them he's going to rule over them, and he promises to be a good king, but he mentions he wants to eat the women and the children, so a man threatens to beat him up, but he ends up getting eaten, as Kaibara mentions that he has changed his mind, saying he's going to eat everyone. So they start running away, but his monsters block their path, and he tells them there's no escape for them. Nir thinks he's insane, and Desire realizes that Tama's life will make an excellent story, but he wants her to do something about the situation, telling her to show him the rest of her story. After some time, Tama regains consciousness, realizing she's in Fawn's house, and she rushes outside, wondering what just happened. So Briard explains that Kaibara has captured the capital, and he's trying to eat everyone, so she decides to stop him, thinking it's her duty to protect the kingdom. But Annette reminds her about the accident that took Leon's life, knowing everyone cried after 2 members of the royal family died. So she thinks everyone loves the royal family, telling Tama they will lose hope if she dies, so she shouldn't put herself in danger. Annette tells her they have a secret for defeating otherworlders, and she heads to the palace with Desire and Nir. They arrive at the entrance, where they're stopped by 2 ogres, who threaten to kill them. But Desire explains that he wants to be eaten, thinking it's a great way to die, so he wants the ogres to tell Kaibara about him. But they become confused, wondering what they should do with him, so he becomes upset, telling them to make up their minds, and they decide to grant his request. They end up in the dungeon again, as Annette starts crying, thinking they're doomed. But Desire tells her to stop, as he tells them he has a plan, revealing that he saved a lockpick, and he tells Nir to work his magic. We see Kaibara in the throne room, as the ogres tell him about Desire, but they suddenly get knocked out, as Tama arrives, and Kaibara tells her he's been waiting for her. In a flashback, we see Tama watching Leon train, and Siberian knocks him down, reminding him that he's going to become the next king. Siberian sees Tama, and she tells him she also wants to fight, but he becomes upset, telling her to know her place and behave like a princess. So she returns to her room, where her mother Lapama realizes that she got into trouble again. She explains that she hates her father because he doesn't want her to learn martial arts, but her mother tells her to listen to what she has to say. We return to the present, as Kaibara mentions that he used Siberian as bait, and Tama prepares to take him on. He explains that he doesn't want to eat her yet, because he wants to have fun with her, and he attacks her with his lightning palms, which sends her crashing against the wall. She recognizes it as her father's technique, and Kaibara tells her about his overpowered skill called gluttony, which allows him to acquire the abilities of anything he eats. We see Dazai's group walking around the palace, and Annette is surprised that he actually has a plan because she thought he really wanted to be eaten. They head to La Palma's room, where he realizes that a drawer is locked, and he tells Nair to help him. So he uses his lockpick to open it, and Dazai sees La Palma's diary. We return to Tama, as Kaibara uses her father's skills to knock her down, telling her she's a terrible fighter. She recalls the moment when she asked Leon why he kept training, because she knows that he doesn't like fighting. So he explains that he isn't a good fighter, thinking she has more talent than him, but he mentions that he needs to work harder than everyone else, because he wants to be as strong as his father. Tama gets back up, and Siberian tells her to surrender, because she's no match for Kaibara, but she explains that Leon would never give up. So Kaibara starts laughing, thinking he will feel truly alive when he eats her, and he thinks he's about to have the best meal of his life. In another flashback, we learn that Kaibara was born into a rich family, and his parents bought him everything he wanted. But his heart felt empty, and he wants to feel alive, so he stabs one of his maids, but he still isn't happy, because he feels like he's being kept in a cage. So he runs away from home, and he sees a homeless man, who's enjoying his meal, but Kaibara is jealous, because he thinks the man is happy with his life, so he beats him up. He walks around the streets, thinking he's the most miserable person in the world, and Recap-kun arrives to fetch him, as he realizes that his boring life has finally come to an end. Back in the present, Kaibara tells everyone about his story, and he mentions that he can now do anything he wants. He prepares to eat Tama, but Dazai gets in the way, telling him his story is boring. He tries to kill Dazai, but he realizes that he can't, thinking it's because his instincts refuse to eat him. Annette tells Kaibara that he's about to receive divine punishment, because Dazai has the power of the storyteller, which allows him to banish other worlders. But he refuses to use his powers on Kaibara, because his story is lame, but this makes him angry, and he unleashes his full power, creating a shockwave that blows everyone away. He decides to kill them before he eats Tama, who realizes that her friends are in trouble, and she blames herself for what's happening, thinking her actions led to this disaster. But Dazai approaches her, and she asks him what she needs to do, so he gives her a book, as he tells her he wrote a story dedicated to her, and he wants her to read it, saying her story is interesting. So she opens the book, and the pages start flying, as Annette realizes that he's using his skill. But Kaibara attacks her, so she uses her shield to defend, as he tells her to focus on their fight. Dazai explains that he has learned about Tama's past, and he knows that she's suppressing her feelings to make her father happy. He reminds her that she tried to replace Leon after his death, but Siberian misunderstood her feelings, so he started to dislike her. Dazai mentions that she has lost sight of her true self, and he reminds her that her mother told her who she's meant to be. She sees a page, and she recalls that La Palma told her that her life belongs to her, so she shouldn't allow anyone to tell her how to live her life. But she's afraid that her father would never allow it, so her mother promises to convince him, and she tells her not to worry, because he just wants her to be happy. We return to the present, as Dazai tells Tama that she has a choice, asking her if she wants to be an ideal princess, or a prince that could replace her brother. But he thinks she should just be herself, reminding her that she's an adventurer, and this allows her to unlock her true power. Her body starts glowing, as he tells her to write the rest of the story, and Siberian realizes that she has activated the crest of the divine beast. We learn that Leon knew about the crest, but Tama told him not to tell their father about it, because he doesn't want her to become a fighter. Her crest disappeared, but Siberian overheard everything, and he realizes that he was the one who locked it away, because he was being an overprotective father. Kaibara mentions that he has finished digesting Siberian's hand, thinking she'll never be able to defeat him. But Dazai starts smoking, saying people can find hope when they're pushed into the depths of despair. Everyone starts cheering for Tama, and she charges in, as Kaibara prepares to use her father's ultimate technique, but she stops him, and she manages to land a headbutt. So he becomes angry, but she uses her father's ultimate technique, which is known as the King's Fang, and it's able to defeat Kaibara. Her crest disappears, and she loses consciousness, as Annette starts healing her, telling her she fought well. Dazai gives La Palma's diary to Siberian, who immediately recognizes it, realizing that Dazai read it without permission, so he wonders if he's going to get executed, but Siberian thanks him for saving Tama. Briard arrives, realizing that she has awakened, and he knows that she used the king's fang, but he mentions that she still hasn't perfected it. Kaibara suddenly transforms, and he reminds everyone that he was one of the 7 heroes who defeated the Dark Lord. But he tells them his secret, saying he ate the Dark Lord's remains, so he was able to acquire his powers, and he thinks nobody will be able to stop him, because he has become the strongest being in the world. He prepares to blast everyone with his dark magic, but Waldelia suddenly cuts his head off. He recognizes her as the Dark Lord's daughter, and he mentions that her father was delicious, so she becomes upset, and she blasts him with a powerful energy beam. Everyone realizes she's overpowered, but Dazai suddenly appears next to her, asking her if she feels better now that she has killed Kaibara. But she wonders why he's still alive, promising to kill him next time, and she flies away with her dragon. He finds her interesting, wondering why she always looks sad, and he wants to write a story about her. The next day, Fawn thanks Dazai's party for saving the capital, and they prepare to leave without Tama, because she has chosen to remain in the castle to support the king. We see Tama in her room, but her father tells her she doesn't belong there, because she doesn't behave like a princess. He tells her to join Dazai's party, saying he doesn't need her to protect him, but he wants her to return after she finishes her journey. So she removes her dress, and leaves through the window, telling him she's going to be an excellent fighter when she returns. Dazai tells Nair that he's terrible at dragging the coffin, so he becomes upset, telling Dazai to start walking. But he thinks that won't be necessary, and they see Tama running after them, realizing she has decided to join the party again. After some time, they see the World Tree, as Annette mentions that it's sacred, and it grants protection to everyone who visits. She reveals that the town of Tonarico is nearby, saying the villagers live alongside nature, and she thinks they should visit it. They arrive in the town, but they're surprised to see a casino, realizing that the Otherworlders created it. We see that the people are gambling, and they're killing each other, so the girls think there must be a mistake, but Dazai thinks the people are depraved, and they have chosen their reality. He realizes he's out of his pills, so he freaks out, and he starts eating stones. They visit the mayor, asking him what happened to the town, so he explains that everyone used to live in peace, and they had the blessings of the World Tree. But the Otherworlders arrived, and they built the casino, which attracted chaotic people from all over the world. He explains that the World Tree has started to wilt, because the spirit of the tree isn't happy with what's happening, and he tells Dazai's party that they're running out of time, asking them to restore the town to its original state. But Dazai is still thinking about his pills, asking the mayor if he can fill his jar. A warrior named Yamada suddenly appears, revealing that he's an Otherworlder, but he explains that he's different, saying he wants to bring peace to the town. So he promises to help the villagers, and Annette thinks they should join him, but she realizes that Dazai has disappeared. We see Dazai walking around the town, and we learn that he isn't happy because he's starting to feel healthy, so he wants to do something to ruin his health. He sees a cave, thinking it looks suspicious, so he decides to check it out, realizing that it's filled with people who are smoking. So he gets excited, asking them if he can join them, but a girl named Eska suddenly approaches him, telling him to join her. She takes him to her bar, where he starts drinking, saying he wants to drink himself to death, because he isn't happy with his life. She asks him what he was doing in the cave, as she mentions that the people were addicted to the leaves from the World Tree. So he explains that he's out of sedatives, and he feels restless, because he doesn't want his mind and body to become healthy. She promises to help him relax, telling him she's a dancer, but he thinks her performance is going to be boring. She tells him to watch her anyway, and she starts dancing, as he realizes that she's an excellent performer. We see Annette crying, as she wonders what happened to Dazai, and she sees him arriving, but she realizes he's with Eska, so she becomes devastated. The mayor asks Eska what she wants, saying the villagers don't want to see her, but she explains that she just came to bring Dazai to his friends. After she leaves, Tama asks the mayor who she is, so he explains that she's called the Witch of Tonarico. He reveals that when the Otherworlders built the casino on the edge of town, the villagers couldn't stop them, but Eska decided to work with them, and she opened a bar next to the casino. Nobody knows anything about her, but everyone thinks she's a traitor, because she makes a fortune by entertaining the Otherworlders who enter her bar. Yamada thinks she's evil, so he wants to take her down, and the mayor is happy to hear this, calling him a true hero. The next day, Dazai walks to the bar, as Annette tries to stop him, telling him everyone's preparing to fight the other worlders, but he doesn't care, saying he never accepted the job. Yamada tells her it's hopeless, because Dazai has already been charmed by the witch, but he tells her not to worry, promising to save him after they destroy the casino. We see Dazai with Eska, and he thanks her for helping him fall asleep, but she tells him to stop spending time with her, because the villagers hate her, but he mentions that he doesn't care. She tells him about the spirit of the world tree, who saves the weak and sick people by granting their wishes, and she thinks praying to the tree might help him. But he thinks she's the one who needs to be saved, and he mentions that he felt her sadness while she was dancing. A group of men suddenly enter the bar, and they tell her to give them drinks, as they intimidate the people who owe them money, knowing they spent all of it at the casino. An otherworlder named Sabu threatens to kill them if they don't pay their debts, so they promise to do whatever it takes to make money. He talks to his boss, telling him the casino's profit is down, because there are less people gambling, so he thinks they need to move to another location. But the boss thinks they just need to turn the villagers into gambling addicts, and teach them how to smoke the leaves from the world tree. Eska reminds him about his promise to leave them alone, saying she paid him protection money, so that the otherworlders won't touch the villagers. But he explains that he needs to make money, and he orders Sabu to kidnap villagers, so she tries to stop him, but he pushes her away. Dazai tells her she isn't a witch, and he calls her an angel, but the ground starts shaking, so everyone runs outside, and they realize that the casino has been destroyed. Yamada tells the otherworlders that he's going to take them down, because they're destroying the peace in the town. Sabu orders his men to attack, but Dazai suddenly confronts Yamada, saying that he can't stand people who act righteous. But Yamada tells him to come to his senses, and think about what needs to be done, but he just thanks Yamada for sharing his opinion, saying he will never change his ways. Yamada promises to show him righteous conduct, and the otherworlders charge in, but he attacks them with his sword of justice, which instantly blows them away. They realize they're no match for him, so they decide to retreat, and he asks Eska if she wants to fight him, but she just thanks him for saving the town. The villagers celebrate, calling Yamada their savior, but they still hate Eska. So he tells them to forgive her, but they throw stones at her, and they tell her to leave the town. But Dazai interferes, telling them she fought to protect the town, as he explains that she was trying to keep the otherworlders in check, so that they wouldn't invade the village. He thinks she's the real savior, and he tells the villagers that they should be ashamed of themselves. But they don't believe him, so Eska decides to leave, as she apologizes for all the trouble she caused, and the villagers are happy that they were able to get rid of her. But Yamada is shocked by their behavior, and he asks Dazai if he knew this would happen. So he explains that it's difficult to distinguish right from wrong, and he can't stand people who act righteous, because they're convinced that they're fighting for the greater good. Yamada wonders if he made the wrong decision, so Dazai explains that he isn't sure, but he mentions that the town banished its protector. He leaves with his party, as the mayor tells Yamada that the otherworlders made a fortune by selling the leaves of the world tree, so he's planning to continue the practice, and also sell the leaves. He thinks the world tree will be revived now that the otherworlders are gone, and he tells Yamada to be the town's bodyguard, so that nobody can interfere with their business. He offers to pay Yamada 10% of the profits, so he falls into despair as he regrets his actions, realizing the mayor is just as bad. Meanwhile, Annette wonders if Dazai saw the whole picture, but he thinks he's no different from Yamada, because he wasn't able to save Eska. They suddenly see the world tree drying up, so the villagers panic, as they wonder what's happening. Eska appears before Dazai, and she thanks him for understanding her, as she grants him her blessing, hoping he finds peace in his life. He notices that his jar is glowing, so he pulls it out, and he realizes she granted his wish, because she's actually the spirit of the world tree. The party reaches a desert, and Annette and Tama are tired, but Dazai is happy, because the heat might kill him. Annette mentions that her plan is to take the shortest path to the Dritten Temple, but she doesn't think they can survive the desert. Nir reveals that he's originally from the desert, and he explains that it's safe to move during the day, because monsters and bandits work at night, but they're suddenly attacked by bandits. Their boss Toru tells them they're about to enter the huntsman's territory, so they need to pay him, but Tama and Annette get ready to fight. Tama tries to kick one of them, but he dodges it, and he's about to hit her, so Annette stops him with her shield, and Tama knocks him down. Toru rushes towards Dazai, because he looks weak, and even though Nir is scared, he still tries to draw his sword, but Toru tells him he should be prepared to die if he takes it out. Toru reveals that his scorpion has a deadly poison in its tail, which excites Dazai, and he tells Toru to kill him. The scorpion stings him, but Toru is shocked when the scorpion gets infected with poison and blows into pieces. Toru becomes angry, and he charges at Dazai, but they suddenly hear a howl, which frightens the bandits, so they decide to retreat. After that, Annette heals Dazai, and Tama realizes that Nier is feeling down, since he wasn't able to help during the fight, so she tries to cheer him up. He apologizes to Dazai for being a coward, but Dazai tells him that no one starts out as a hero, saying he will get stronger with time. Annette is worried about the howl, so she tells Nier to guide them, and he takes them to the orphanage where he grew up. A woman named Kathy gives them food, and everyone finds it delicious, but Dazai asks for synthetic seasoning, and they have no idea what he's talking about. The other children at the orphanage wonder if Nier has become a hero, because he said he would return after becoming one, so he tells them he's a member of a hero's party. He explains that Dazai is a hero, but Dazai mentions that he's just an author, so the children ask him to tell them a story, but he's about to share a depressing one, so Kathy stops him. At night, they once again hear the howl, and Kathy reveals that it's a wolf, telling them never to go out at night, but we see that Dazai is already outside. As everyone's sleeping, Nier sees something moving outside their room, which scares him as he thinks about the wolf. He takes his sword and goes to inspect it, but he comes across a man named Saito, and Nier realizes he's been donating food to the orphanage. Nier wonders why he leaves it there in secret, so he explains that he enjoys watching the children eat the food from outside the window. He wonders who Nier is, because he hasn't seen him in the orphanage, so Nier explains that he has been traveling, but he grew up in the orphanage after his parents died. He shows Saito his father's sword, and he reveals that he has been traveling so he can become a hero who's worthy of wielding the sword. After talking all night, Saito is about to leave, and Nier tells him he should have breakfast with the children so they can thank him, but he thinks he doesn't deserve it. After that, Nier goes with him to collect food, and they secretly place it outside the orphanage. Toru and his men arrive at the orphanage, and they take one of the children hostage, so Tama tells Kathy to hide with the kids. Tama and Annette attack the men, but Nier is once again unable to move, so Saito arrives and takes him away. Nier starts crying, which makes Saito remember his old life, and he reveals that he lost something important in his old world due to his legs, as Nier realizes that he's an otherworlder. Saito transforms into a wolf, and he starts killing everyone, so Toru decides to retreat, but Saito chases after him. He's about to kill Toru, but Nier gathers the courage to block him with his sword, telling him to stop, because he won't be able to return to his old self if he continues his rampage. He continues to attack, but when Nier drops his sword, he manages to stop himself before he hits Nier, and he turns back into his human self. He reveals that in his old world, his parents died at a young age, and he lived a lonely life until a boy reached out to him. But one day, he saw the boy being beaten, and instead of helping him, he tried to run away, but Recap-kun arrived to fetch him. He mentions that he could have saved the boy if his legs were okay, but Dazai tells him to stop blaming his legs, saying he ran away due to his weak heart. Nier tells Dazai to stop, because he can understand what Saito is going through, since he's also a coward. But Saito calls him a warrior, because when he was out of control, Nier was the one who stopped him despite having no special powers. Dazai prepares to send Saito back to his original world, telling him he's a good person, because unlike others who use their powers for selfish reasons, he helped the children. The children thank him for his help, and as Dazai sends him back, he realizes that his friend is there to support him, so he starts crying. Isha and Wolf are fighting in a war, and she tells him to stop drinking, but he thinks she worries too much, which makes her angry. Another group of enemies is about to attack them, so he tells one of the dwarves named Doran to draw the enemies toward the east side. Doran mentions that he isn't going to accept orders from Wolf, but he still attacks the lizards, making them follow him. Wolf uses wind magic to summon a tornado and destroy the enemy forces, forcing them to retreat. He thinks that instead of chasing them, they should withdraw as well, but Isha is shocked because she realizes that Dazai has also been caught in the tornado. At night, Doran and the dwarves are celebrating their victory, and he thinks the church should thank them because they're dealing with the fallen otherworlders for the church. But Wolf tells Doran he shouldn't badmouth the church, and he compliments the dwarves for their bravery. Meanwhile, Isha wonders if Dazai is okay, and Annette mentions that he was in his coffin, which protected him, but he thinks he has bad luck because he was able to survive. Wolf arrives, and Mellows instantly falls in love with his familiar. He apologizes to Dazai for hitting him, and Dazai thinks he should be apologizing for failing to kill him, but Dazai is happy he got to have another near-death experience. Isha tells them they're at war with one of the 7 fallen angels, and Tama reveals that she has already defeated one of them, but Wolf doesn't believe her. She thinks he shouldn't underestimate their party, and she tells him about Dazai's power to send the fallen otherworlders back to their world. Wolf mentions that the Pope is interested in that power, but he thinks the church doesn't need it, because no matter what kind of gift a person has, it's meaningless in the face of his magic. As he's about to leave, he tells Dazai to stay back, saying he will take care of the fallen angels. Tama wonders if he's extremely powerful, so Isha reveals that he's one of the strongest wizards in the world. Meanwhile, the fallen angel of misery returns to the castle, and he mentions that they will win tomorrow, because he's going to join the fight. But another man notes that he's planning on sending the fallen angel of greed named Yuriko, because he thinks she can defeat Wolf. Dazai realizes that Mellows is sad, because he already misses Wolf's familiar, and he thinks they're the same, since they're both looking for a woman, so he offers to help Mellows find her. They see her with Wolf, who's surrounded by his fans, and Dazai teases Mellows, saying Wolf is his complete opposite. They follow Wolf, and see him trying to get into a girl's house, but no one opens the door, and Dazai thinks he's like Mellows, because he's also pursuing his beloved. Wolf tells the girl inside the house that he's going to war tomorrow, and he promises to return, but Dazai doesn't think they should eavesdrop on him, so he decides to leave. The next day, the fallen angel's army attacks once again, and Tama wishes to fight, but Doran tells them to relax, because they're his guests. As the fight begins, everything seems to be going well with the help of Wolf's magic, but a dragon suddenly appears, and it starts blasting everyone. Isha recognizes it as the legendary dragon Jade, who was once under the control of the Dark Lord, but Wolf is disappointed the fallen angel of misery only has a dragon as his trump card, because he has already defeated several dragons in the past. He prepares to attack it, and Doran sees that someone other than the fallen angel of misery is riding the dragon. Wolf is shocked when he sees Yuriko, and he drops his staff as she grabs him with her dark hands. So Isha tries to stop her, but the dark hands touch her, and it makes her drop to her knees. Yuriko takes Wolf away, and Doran asks Isha what's happening, but she tells him they need to retreat. After that, she briefs everyone about the situation, and Doran is angry because they were too dependent on Wolf, so in his absence, they have started to lose the war. Meanwhile, Dazai goes to the house where Wolf went to, and he's shocked to see that an old woman lives there. Isha thinks Yuriko might be Wolf's student because he used to be passionate about teaching the otherworlders. But he suddenly stopped one day and started drinking, which makes Tama wonder if it's because of Yuriko. Isha tells Doran to send soldiers to rescue Wolf, but he explains that he can't spare any, so Tama tells them they will get him back. They wonder where Dazai is, but everyone's shocked when he returns carrying an old woman. The next day, Doran gives them new equipment, and Dazai mentions that he didn't get what he requested. But Doran reveals that the craftsmen are confused with his request, and they haven't finished making it yet. Nir thinks they will be tired after crossing the desert, but Toru suddenly arrives, saying he has changed after Nir saved him, and he's there to help them. Toru reveals that he runs a bus company during the day and protects the orphanage at night, but Tama has no idea what a bus is. So he explains that his skill lets him turn anything into a bus, and he demonstrates it by hitting a tiger and turning it into a bus. Dazai tries to ride it, but Toru kicks him away and leaves him behind because he's still angry at Dazai for killing his scorpion. Dazai thinks he has no choice but to stay behind, but the woman asks him to take her to Wolf, so he decides to help her. Annette and the others reach the Dritten Temple, and Annette tries to help the priests who have already been defeated by Yuriko, but Isha tells her she shouldn't touch them because Yuriko's magic is still present on them. They enter the temple, where they see Wolf hanging by the throne, but Yuriko doesn't want anyone to interrupt them, so she summons skeletons to fight them. Wolf begs her to stop, but she reminds him that he was the one who taught her never to hesitate in front of the enemy. The skeletons attack Annette, and she blocks them with her shield, while Isha blasts them with her spell, but everyone's shocked as they realize that the skeletons keep regenerating. Isha wonders what happened between Yuriko and Wolf, and she thinks Wolf must have been a great teacher, so there shouldn't be any reason for Yuriko to hate him. We go back to the time when Yuriko was Wolf's student, and he mentions that her magic isn't suitable for battle. He explains that otherworlders aren't required to challenge the Dark Lord, and he tells her to live a normal life, but she wants to save everyone by defeating the Dark Lord. Yuriko enjoyed their time together, but one day, a girl appeared from another world, and Wolf became occupied with her. He stopped giving attention to Yuriko, but she still continues her training, hoping he would notice her again. But all he can see is the girl, so she becomes jealous, and her powers awaken as she attacks the girl, engulfing her into the darkness. Yuriko suddenly calls back all the skeletons, which makes them think she's sparing them, but she summons a giant monster. Wolf tells everyone to get away, and the monster is about to attack them, but Dazai suddenly arrives. Yuriko is shocked to see the old woman, because she's her younger sister Hikari, which confuses everyone. Dazai mentions how Hikari told him she was always sick as a child, but Yuriko always stayed by her side and took care of her. Yuriko was excited about high school, but she had to stay home most of the time because she had to take care of Hikari. But Yuriko doesn't like to hear about her past, and she once again summons the skeletons. Tama and the others protect Dazai from the skeletons, and he tells Yuriko he's an author, saying he can't die before writing her story. Hikari tries to get Yuriko back to her senses, but she mentions that she always hated Hikari because she stole her childhood, so she was happy when she was transported to another world. She thought she could finally live her life, but we learn that Hikari was the one who took Wolf's attention away from her. Yuriko summons the monster to kill Hikari, but Dazai asks her what she really desires, which makes her angry, so she orders the monster to kill him. But Wolf pushes him out of the way, and he gets hit, so his body starts to wither. But he's shocked when Dazai tells him to stay out of the way, because he has no place in the story he's writing. Yuriko summons the skeletons, and they hit Dazai, causing him to bleed, but he gets close to her, saying he needs to write about her true feelings. We go back to Yuriko's graduation day, but her father doesn't care, because he's occupied with Hikari, and Yuriko becomes sad when she sees other girls with their parents. As he leaves for work, he tells Yuriko to take care of Hikari, but she puts on her uniform and goes to school. When she returns home, her father slaps her, because Hikari's condition got worse in her absence. Yuriko goes outside the house, thinking she just wanted attention, but she gets hit by Recap-kun, who transports her to the new world. Yuriko starts to cry, saying she's a terrible sister, but Hikari hugs her, realizing she was the reason why Yuriko suffered. Dazai reveals that Hikari lost hope in her old world without Yuriko, which led to her getting hit by the truck. We learn that after Hikari came to the new world, she told Wolf she would become strong enough to defeat the Dark Lord, because she wants Yuriko to live her life freely, saying she wants her to be happy in this world. Dazai prepares to send them back to their original world, as Hikari suddenly turns into her younger self, and all the people who got hurt by Yuriko are healed. She apologizes to everyone for all the trouble she caused, and she thanks Wolf for granting her a moment of youth. They get transported to their old world, and as Hikari wakes up, she thinks everything that happened was just a dream. We see Doran defending the castle, as the enemies decide to retreat. So the dwarves celebrate, thinking the fight is over, but he mentions that they can't call it a victory unless Wolf returns with the others. Dazai and the others prepare to head back, but the ceiling suddenly collapses, as the fallen angel of misery appears, saying he's there to eliminate them. Wolf attacks him with a powerful wind spell, and the girls realize that his magic is insane, but it doesn't affect the fallen angel, who explains that his armor grants him spell immunity. Toru tries to turn him into a bus, but it doesn't work, so Tama charges in, and she attacks him with her ultimate move. But he easily blocks it, and he summons his sword, as he prepares to strike her down. But Nier blocks his attack, shattering his sword, and he recognizes Nier's weapon. So he finds him interesting, telling him to work on improving his skills, and he jumps away, as everyone thanks Nier for saving them from the fallen angel. That evening, we see everyone celebrating in the castle, as Isha mentions that she's glad the sisters got a happy ending. But Wolf starts to question the church's methods, because he thinks the sisters were summoned for their convenience, saying they weren't happy while they were staying in this world. Mellows approaches Wolf's familiar, but she immediately rejects him, so he becomes depressed, as Dazai tells him to cheer up. He suddenly sees a strange woman, and he recognizes her as Saki. She mentions that she's glad to see him again, and he immediately invites her to finish what they started, saying they will jump off the building together. But she doesn't want to do it, telling him he has changed since she last saw him because he looks lively, and she mentions that he's not the person she used to know. He tries to convince her that he's still living a miserable life, but his companions appear, saying Mellows came rushing to them, so they ask him what happened. Saki realizes that he found something better than death in this world, so she tells him she can't be with him anymore, and she walks away, as he calls her name, so Annette realizes that she's the girl he's been searching for. The next day, they visit the guildmaster of the blacksmith's guild named Rhodos, and we learn that he was the one who made their equipment. But Dazai is restless because Saki told him that she can't be with him, and he eats his pills, causing him to pass out. Nier asks Rhodos about his sword, saying it belonged to his father, so Rhodos checks it out, but he mentions that the sword is too great for Nier, saying he needs to get stronger so that he can become a warrior worthy of it. Dazai suddenly rides a machine, as Rhodos warns him that its power still needs to be adjusted, saying it could kill him. But he doesn't care, saying he wants to die, and he starts driving away, as his companions chase after him. We cut to the fallen angels, as they have a meeting with Saki, who appears to be in a good mood. One of them asks her about her reunion with Dazai, calling him their enemy, and she mentions that he has the power to change the world, saying he's as wonderful as ever. We return to Dazai's companions, and we learn that they lost him, but a man asks them if they need help, saying they're in the village where the hero rested before he went to the Demon Lord's castle. He shows them the famous statue of the hero fighting the Demon Lord, but Tama mentions that it looks like he's running away. So the man explains that it used to look heroic, but a weirdo riding a strange vehicle crashed into it, and they realize he's talking about Dazai. They think about following him, but the man tells them that he's heading to the shrine at the end of the village, which leads to the forbidden land called Orange. Annette recognizes it, knowing the Fairy Queen lives there, but the man thinks he'll never reach it, because he needs to pass 3 trials to get there, saying only the hero passed it so far, so the man thinks Dazai will be back soon. We see Dazai as giant creatures get in his way, trying to test him, but he dashes past them, allowing him to skip the tests. He enters a strange portal, which takes him to the Forbidden Land, and the Fairy Queen named Oberas greets him, telling him he's the second human to visit her. He thinks he's finally resting in paradise, thinking he's already dead, but the fairy twins named Ilu and Solu appear, telling him to bow to their queen. Oberas explains that she grants her protection to the humans who visit her, telling him he needs to bring peace to the world after he receives it. She asks him what's needed to save the world, wondering if it's absolute power or trust in others. But he just tells her that he wants to die, and he explains that he doesn't want to save the world because he's already had enough, saying his soulmate left him. Solu thinks he's insane, but Oberas knows that he has received Eska's blessing, wondering why she chose him, because she has a reputation for being incredibly sincere. He reveals that she gave him infinite sedatives, asking Oberas if she wants to try it, but Solu becomes upset, threatening to kill him because she can't stand his attitude. But Oberas reveals that the hero who visited her failed to bring peace to the world, and she knows that the world is in chaos, saying the otherworlders are blurring the line between good and evil. So she thinks a righteous person can never resolve the situation, and she mentions that Dazai might just be the person the world needs. She touches him, and she tells him that he will be reunited with his soulmate at the end of his journey, so she wants him to keep on living. He thinks she's just trying to cheer him up, but he thanks her anyway, and she gives him a parting gift, telling him to use it if he needs the fairies to help him. He gets teleported away, and we return to his companions, as they wait for him to come back. Nier thinks he has given up on traveling, because Saki rejected him, but he suddenly crashes into the statue, and he apologizes for making them worry. The man becomes upset, because he ruined the statue again, but he uses the whistle to summon Solu, and he orders her to fix it. She refuses to do it, but Oberas calls her, wishing her luck, and she realizes that she doesn't have a choice. Dazai's group leaves the castle, and they continue their journey, because he wants to be reunited with Saki. Everyone thinks he's going to change the world, but they wonder if he's going to bring peace or chaos, knowing the fate of the world rests on his shoulders. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.